Hey guys, it's been a while since I made one of these, so hopefully everything goes smoothly. Today we are finally kind of back to normal. We had PSSAs and we had foreign language presentations, and it's been some time since we've been in here talking about MDGs. I do want to just remind you before I get started that this week you have a geography assignment due, and we'll have current events on Friday as usual, so you can find this week's geography activity on the calendar. All right, so we started off by reviewing the MDGs, and just to refresh your memory, an MDG is a Millennium Development Goal. The UN created 8 of these in the year 2000 with the hope that if we work towards these goals, we can make the world a better place. And we're expected to achieve these goals, or try to achieve these goals, by the year 2015, which is next year. So some of the goals that we've talked about is halving poverty and hunger, sending all children to primary school, boys and girls, improving maternal health and infant health, and the big one that we reviewed was women's empowerment. We talked about how if you empower women, you educate them, and if you educate them, they can be productive members of society. They can go to school, they can get jobs. If they get jobs, they can make an income. If they're making an income, their situation improves, as does their country's. Their GDP will go up, that gross domestic product that we talked about. They will get involved in politics, which will lead to a more, I guess you could say, equitable government and society. So it really does have a positive ripple effect. Additionally, if you educate a woman, she knows more about health. She can take better care of herself. She can take better care of her children. And rather than having this negative cycle of poverty and sickness, we have a more positive cycle of education, opportunity, and health. All right, so that being said, we got into development goal number 6. Now, development goal number 6 has to do with disease, really. So we started by talking about mosquitoes and what it feels like to get bitten by a mosquito. And we talked about how it pinches and it itches and you get these red welts, and it's pretty much the worst thing ever. But it really put it into perspective when I told everyone that there's 655,000 deaths each year as a result of mosquito bites. 91% of those deaths happening in Africa. So we decided we're going to look into this malaria topic. Just to, if you want to write this in real quickly, the target of this goal, let me get my highlighter. Here's our target right here. To stop and begin to reverse the spread of HIV and AIDS, you should write this down, by 2015, and also to stop and begin to reverse the spread of malaria and other diseases by 2015. Okay, sorry about that, little skip. So the thing that you want to remember here, or the thing that you want to really make note of, is that we're talking about diseases that are preventable and treatable. Now, you could argue that HIV and AIDS is not curable, that's true, but we do have treatments that could help you live a longer life with HIV and AIDS. Also, we have successfully cured 2 infants. If a mother has HIV or AIDS, then that child will be born with the virus. So if you catch it early enough, they're finding that they can do something about it, which is fantastic news. And I don't want to speak too soon, but I feel like that does open the door for possibly finding a cure for adults in the future as well. HIV and AIDS, though, we can stop the spread. So even if we don't have a cure just yet, at least by stopping the spread, we could really be doing something powerful. And then when it comes to malaria, tuberculosis, things like that, these are things, again, that are preventable and treatable. All right, so let's go back to a quick video. This video is so cheesy. It's very elementary, it's cartoony, but the others that I found were very scientific, a little too scientific for our purposes, or there's a fine line between wanting to tell you the truth and then being too truthful. They were just a little too upsetting with some of the images that they showed. So instead, I found this cute little video that does do a somewhat effective job of educating you about mosquitoes. So why don't you take a second and watch this, and you'll see that there's a little spot right here that says video under the mosquito. You can just kind of jot in there anything that stands out to you.
Leo and Kaya are very good friends. Kaya is from Africa. People who live in Africa, especially babies, young children and pregnant women, are at risk of catching a very serious disease called malaria. One day, Kaya was telling Leo about malaria in Africa. People in Africa can get malaria if they are bitten by an infected mosquito, said Kaya. Mosquitoes love water. When it rains a lot in Africa, there are more mosquitoes and more malaria. What happens if you get malaria? Asked Leo. Malaria makes you feel really hot, and your head and body will hurt a lot. You will not feel like eating and will be too ill to go to school, Kaya responded. Leo then asked, what do you do if you get malaria? Kaya answered, you must get medicine very quickly to make you feel better. But the clinic or hospital might be very far away from home, and you might have to walk all the way there, even if you are ill. Leo was surprised. If you get malaria once, can you get it again? He asked. Yes, replied Kaya. So you must protect yourself from mosquitoes biting you and giving you malaria again. Kaya showed Leo how she sleeps under a bed net at night so that mosquitoes cannot bite her while she is asleep. Her room is also sprayed with a bug-killing spray to get rid of the mosquitoes. Now Leo knows a lot about malaria in Africa. Thank you, Kaya, said Leo. How much do you know about malaria? Which one of these bugs could give you malaria if it bit you? Is it a wasp, a spider, a mosquito, or a moth? The answer is a mosquito.
All right, so I told you that video was super cheesy, and that was probably the hardest test you'll ever take in here, but still pretty informative. I hope that you got something out of it. I'm not going to review all of the points, but I think just by watching that, it gives you an idea of how malaria is spread and what the effects of malaria can be. All right, so next what we did was we looked at this infographic. I think this is a great infographic, actually, because it really covers a lot of different topics. And on your paper, I have some questions here, interesting facts, what malaria can lead to, how the U.S. combated it. You can fill all these in as we go along, but I'm just going to briefly skim through this for you. Then you can do that on your own time or pause me as I'm speaking. All right, so what does it feel like? It starts with just a quick painless bite from a mosquito, and what I didn't realize is that there's a parasite in there, and that's how malaria actually gets into you. So anyway, it travels to your liver very quickly, and the disease can actually, I guess, do we call it a disease? Yeah, disease. It could become deadly within 24 hours, and the first symptoms that you'll see are very flu-like with a headache, fever, nausea. If you don't treat it, it could lead to severe anemia, the blood disease, respiratory distress so you can't breathe, a brain infection, liver failure, stumbling my words, shock, coma, seizures, and again, these are all preventable. We could stop this from happening. Some interesting facts about malaria, just because I didn't realize that it went all the way back to ancient Egyptian times. We actually see malaria in some mummies. Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy had it. I did not realize this. Actually, I'm questioning a little bit. It says that malaria killed 1 million people in the Civil War, which I guess is believable because we were fighting mostly in the South, and there tends to be swampy areas down there. But I don't know. That seems kind of, I don't know. I don't know if I believe that. The other one is that it killed more people in World War II than combat. Again, I'm not sure that I totally believe that, but then again, statistically, my husband's grandfather did come back from World War II with malaria. So, I don't know. Thankfully, in America, we have treatments, though. At one point, malaria was very prevalent in this country. It says here that well into the 1900s, we recorded millions of cases of malaria. But unlike other places in the world, we had the resources to stop it. We created the CDC, otherwise known as the Centers for Disease Control. This was something that was founded specifically for malaria. If you're not familiar with the CDC, maybe you've heard of it. These are the guys that keep us healthy. So when there is some sort of outbreak or flu outbreak, like the swine flu or the West Nile virus, these are the guys that come in and tell us what we should be doing. Also, they're the ones, maybe you've seen this in movies like Outbreak or whatever. They wear those big bubble suits and they quarantine an area. I don't know how often they have to do that. But anyway, in the 1940s, when the CDC was created, their strategy was to provide doctors. They put screens on windows, which we take this for granted that we have screened windows so we could sleep at night with our window open, but it makes so much sense. And this is where that came from. And we drained swamplands where mosquitoes bred. And just by doing this, we actually halted malaria in our country by the 1950s. But why not in the rest of the world? Well, it comes down to poverty. The reason why 91% of deaths are happening in Africa is the same stuff that we've been talking about. As a result of poverty, they don't have access to education. They don't have access to things that could help prevent malaria. They don't have access to clinics or medicine or things like this so that they can cure the malaria. Something else that I thought was really interesting, I was watching a TED Talks last night, and the woman was saying, we have a different value on life than people in parts of Africa do. And actually, I don't want to get too personal, but my husband and I were talking this weekend. We had we were shopping, I guess, and we saw this woman, and she took a very terrible fall. The kind of fall that people were rushing over to help her, and people were screaming to call 911, and I was a mess. I was saying we need to do something, but there were plenty of people helping. My husband just wanted to get me out of the way, really. We got to talking, and he said, thank goodness we live in a place where there's so much value on life that when a stranger falls, we're all willing to run and help because we know that life is valuable and we know that we can save lives if we act fast and if we use the right treatments that we have access to. And I looked at him and I said, well, of course. That's what it means to live in a society. That's what it is to be a part of humankind. We work together. We help each other. And he said, we take that for granted, but in Africa, there's different values. In a place where you do have so many people dying from AIDS and HIV and malaria and conflict zones and hunger and poverty and water shortages, death is all around them. It is so prevalent. And it's not to say that they're cynical, but when somebody is dying or is very ill, there isn't that anxiousness to do something about it because different set of values. Death is just so prevalent now that, in these areas that it doesn't strike them to run for help and to try to save that life. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but there's that cultural difference that we've talked about. So anyway, you see here 655,000 deaths, most of them in Africa, and we just talked about why. So what can we do? We could try to prevent it with things like mosquito nets. We can educate people. I watched a video yesterday of a woman saying that her purpose in life is to just walk around and tell people, were you bit? Go get tested. Were you bit? Go get tested. And to send these mosquito nets around and teach people about how to avoid these still water areas. And also treatment. And then I would argue that the last piece is we have to try to change the mindset that nothing can be done. We have to get people, I don't want to say all, I hate to make these generalizations, but those people who don't have such a high value on life, we have to change that because we can make a difference. So I thought that was just a really interesting point. All right, so here's another one. There's a nasty picture of a mosquito. But let's scroll down to this infographic. Now, we've talked about this. Within 24 hours, it can become life-threatening. 91% of malaria deaths occur in Africa. And then these mosquito nets, they actually have 2 lines of defenses. First of all, if you have a net up while you're sleeping, the mosquito can't get you, kind of like us sleeping with screened windows. So that's good. But the other piece of it is that these mosquito nets are laced with insecticides. So the minute a mosquito touches it, they die, which is great. Great and not great. We'll get to that in a second. All right, so has this been working? Have the mosquito nets been helping? I would argue that yes, because as you can see in this little graph here, we've dropped the number of malaria-related deaths by 26%. So we've cut them by a quarter. That's wonderful. And a $6 net could last 5 years. That's amazing. We just need to get them out there. All right, so wrapping this up then, my brain, my closed-minded brain for a few minutes thought to myself, well, this is easy. Let's just get rid of the mosquitoes. But then I started thinking about it, and you can't just get rid of the mosquitoes. They're a part of an ecosystem, and even though they seem pesky to us, and I'm not sure what they do that's positive, what they contribute that's positive to this world, they do feed something. They feed bats, and they're a part of this food chain, and you can't just disrupt the food chain. But we did end by watching this video. This is a pretty good one, so I'll leave you with this.
What's the worst bug on the planet? You might vote for the horsefly or perhaps the wasp, but for many people, the worst offender is by far the mosquito. The buzzing, the biting, the itching. The mosquito is one of the most commonly detested pests in the world. In Alaska, swarms of mosquitoes can get so thick that they actually asphyxiate caribou, and mosquito-borne diseases kill millions of people every year. The scourge that is the mosquito isn't new. Mosquitoes have been around for over 100 million years, and over that time have co-evolved with all sorts of species, including our own. There are actually thousands of species of mosquitoes in the world, but they all share one insidious quality. They suck blood, and they're really, really good at sucking blood. Here's how they do it. After landing, the mosquito will slather some saliva onto the victim's skin, which works like an antiseptic, numbing the spot so we don't notice their attack. This is what causes the itchy red bumps, by the way. Then the bug will use its serrated mandibles to carve a little hole in your skin, allowing it to probe around with its proboscis, searching for a blood vessel. When it hits one, the lucky parasite can suck 2 to 3 times its weight in blood. Turns out we don't really like that too much. In fact, humans hate mosquitoes so much that we spend billions of dollars worldwide to keep them away from us. From citronella candles to bug sprays to heavy-duty agricultural pesticides. But it's not just that mosquitoes are annoying. They're also deadly. Mosquitoes can transmit everything from malaria to yellow fever to West Nile virus to dengue. Over 1 million people worldwide die every year from mosquito-borne diseases. And that's just people. Horses, dogs, cats, they can all get diseases from mosquitoes too. So if these bugs are so dastardly, why don't we just get rid of them? We are humans after all, and we're pretty good at getting rid of species. Well, it's not quite so simple. Getting rid of the mosquito removes a food source for lots of organisms, like frogs and fish and birds. Without them, plants would lose a pollinator. But some scientists say that mosquitoes aren't actually all that important. If we got rid of them, they argue, another species would simply take their place, and we'd probably have far fewer deaths from malaria. The problem is that nobody knows what would happen if we killed off all the mosquitoes. Something better might take their spot, or perhaps something even worse. The question is, are we willing to take that risk?
All right, so another good video. I like that one because, right, that gives us something to think about. You can't just disrupt an ecosystem and the food chain. You don't know what else is going to pop up in its place, as they said. So I thought that was a pretty good video. All right, that's all I have for you today. So tomorrow we will get into MDG 7 in the computer lab. All right, come see me tomorrow in Resource if you have any questions.